welcome everybody. I always like to start talks off by our generating a compassionate motivation, because that's the most important aspect of what we do in any activity. So let's think that we're going to share the time this morning to think about compassion, and especially compassion spread equally to all living beings, and compassion that will boost us to wanting to generate bodhicitta, which is the aspiration to attain full awakening in order to benefit all sentient beings most effectively. And so that bodhicitta is the topic of what we're going to talk about this morning. Okay, so bodhicitta in the Tibetan tradition has that very specific definition. It's a primary consciousness with two aspirations. One is to benefit sentient beings most effectively, and in order to do that, to oneself attaining Buddhahood. Because with the attainment of Buddhahood, then we have the full compassion, wisdom, skillful means, power, all the good conditions necessary to benefit sentient beings. So this bodhicitta motivation is, it's really something. And speaking personally here, this is what has really given my life a lot of meaning. Before I encountered Buddhist teachings, I just was wondering, what's the meaning of my life? And I knew it had something to do with helping other people, but I didn't know what. And it seemed to me that when you died, it was all over. So, whatever you did really wasn't of so much value to start with. But when I learned about the Buddhist worldview and about rebirth, and about the potential of our mind, the clear light nature of our mind, which gives us the ability to know reality and so on, then I thought, wow, if I can do something to progress towards Buddhahood, so I could be better able to benefit other living beings, that would be something really meaningful in my life. And for me, finding the Dharma in that way really transformed how I was living, from somebody going, what's the use, to, I have a purpose now. And then the Buddha not only talked about having this kind of compassion for all living beings, but he gave a path to generate that. Because in Sunday school, I had always heard, do unto others as you would want them to do unto you, that kind of stuff. And I heard at, Christmas time, may everybody have happiness and good cheer and blah, blah. But I didn't see anybody living that. What I saw in my environment is sentient beings just like me, wanting what they liked and pushing away what they didn't like, and getting mad at people who interfered with their happiness, and getting jealous of people who were bigger, who were better than them, and getting, arrogant when they were better than somebody else. And so I didn't see any examples or have any clue of how to change my mind into one that cherished living beings and really wanted to work for their benefit, even though I had that feeling that that was something really worthwhile. It's like, okay, that motivation's here, I'm down here, how do I get there? Okay? And so this is where I think that just the beauty in the Buddhist teachings comes in, is in the Tibetan tradition, we have two different ways of generating bodhicitta and transforming our minds. And so I'll go through them very quickly. Today we don't have a lot of time, But, there's other videos on my website describing all of this in more detail. So one of the ways of generating bodhicitta is called the 7-point cause and effect instruction. And this comes from Atisha and Kamala Shila, great Indian sages, and then was, taught also in Tibet. And this, so that's one of the techniques. The second one comes from Shantideva, an 8th century Indian sage who was absolutely out of sight. His work just, whoa, you can't. He hits all your afflictions and your sensitive points and how you want to justify and rationalize and squirm to get out of acknowledging how selfish and self-centered you are. And he hits all of those. But you can tell that he does that because he really cares. And it makes, at least for me, it made me really learn how to be honest with myself. Because Shantideva was incredibly honest with himself. If you read his book, Engaging in the Bodhisattva's Deeds, you can see that he's talking to himself and, hitting on those things in himself. Okay, let's go back to the first method, the 7-point cause and effect instruction, okay, to generate bodhicitta. So both of these methods that I just mentioned start out with the foundation of equanimity. And here, equanimity means subduing attachment and favoritism and bias towards friends and relatives, and subduing also adversity, dislike, anger about people who we feel threatened by, who have harmed us, who we disagree with. Okay? And we have to start out, generating bodhicitta with this to set up an equal stage. Yeah, because as long as we're favoring the people who are nice to us and disfavoring the people we don't like, how are we going to generate compassion equally for both of them? Yeah, it's not going to work. So this meditation is quite potent, when you do it, because you see that our discrimination into saying somebody's a friend and therefore they are inherently good and inherently wonderful and they're always going to support me, and discriminating the enemy, we'll call enemy here, meaning a person who threatens me, who harms me, who I dislike, who disagrees, that person is inherently bad, despicable, irredeemable, and we tend to put people into very black and white categories like this. And then everybody else is a stranger we just ignore as if they, are the fire hydrants that we walk by, and we just have to, walk around them but not trip over them. But when we really start penetrating and asking ourselves why we favor some people and not others, what we come up with is it depends on how they relate to me. Okay, this is giving us a clue. Yeah, we judge everything in terms of how it relates to me. If somebody's nice to me, they're good. Somebody's mean to me, they're bad. If somebody is mean to somebody else I don't like, then they're good, even though they're mean, okay, because they're mean to somebody I don't like, okay. So, we begin to see how self-centered we are and how we judge and evaluate and interpret everything we experience in terms of me, And as we get further into this meditation, we begin to see how we think we are the center of the universe, Okay, and that becomes a little bit of a problem, but we'll get to that. Okay, so that's the foundation for both of these methods. Equanimity, feeling open-hearted, towards everybody, not labeling them friend and good and enemy and bad, dependent on how they react towards me, because everybody has good qualities. All ordinary sentient beings also have faults. Okay, so the 7-point instruction, it begins with seeing all sentient beings as having been our mother. They usually use the mother here because in traditional cultures, the mother, is the one who brings you up, who has you, who is your primary caretaker. Or when you're little and actually throughout your whole life. We can open it and say it's not just the mother, it's parents in general. Yeah, fathers are equally often involved with their children's lives. And for some people, they may have grown up with a grandparent and you use your grandparent, or maybe it was a babysitter. I had a fantastic babysitter when I was little who really taught me a lot. You can use different people. Okay, but to recognize that everybody's been in that role regarding you at some time or another, in our infinite lifetimes in samsara. Okay, and then the second one is, if everybody's been our parent or the kind person who brought us up and took care of us, then they were just like our present mother. And we start really contemplating the kindnesses of our present parents, which is really important. I think especially in Western cultures where people often don't get along so well with their parents or very rebellious. And, you go and you hear about toxic families and people not talking very highly about their family and their parents. And it's really important, I think, in order to heal that, is that we focus on the kindness of our parents, not just on what they did that we don't like. Okay? And you can go, well, okay, my mother had me, but she also did blah, 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 blah. And my father, supported the family, but he also did. And, that's what we like to do. We may say something nice, and then we point the finger and say how we didn't get fair treatment as a child or whatever our issues are. And that way of looking at our family relationships only puts us in a prison of our own making. Yeah. And our prison is one of seeing ourselves as a victim, and blaming and finding fault. And you can feel as justified as you want to have that view of your family, but it doesn't do any good in terms of healing your own bad feelings. So again here, I personally found that if I meditated on the kindness of my parents and really looked at their lives and what they did, it was pretty amazing, in terms of, well, let's start with they got up in the middle of the night to feed me. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't had a child, but I don't think I'd be too hot on getting up in the middle of the night to feed some crying baby. Yeah, I like to sleep through the whole night and not be disturbed. But what did my parents do? I mean, when you have a baby, they cry in the middle of the night, not once, but several times, and you have to get up and feed them or comfort them or whatever it is. Yeah, and so just thinking about that and what you have to do to raise a child and teach a child manners, and let them know, teach them how to fit in society with other people and get along with others. And that's not easy to do. Okay, so seeing all sentient beings as having been our mother, then seeing them as kind when they were our mother or father or grandmother or caretaker. And then the third point is when you see somebody as kind, you automatically want to repay it. Yeah? So then you meditate with this feeling of, I have received a lot of kindness from others when they were my parents in previous lives, and this life I want to repay their kindness. Okay? So that's a whole big shift in our way of relating to people. Yeah? Then the fourth point is called heartwarming love. And this is a specific kind of love in which you see sentient beings as worthy of love, worthy of affection, worthy of wanting them to be happy. Because what love is, as it's defined in the Dharma, is the wish for somebody to have happiness and its causes. Okay, so we want to generate that kind of wish towards everybody equally because they've all been our parents, they've all been kind to us, and we want to repay that kindness. Okay, and they are definitely worthy of love. Okay, so that's the fourth one, heartwarming love. The fifth step is then compassion, because if we want sentient beings to have happiness and its causes with love, we also need to wish them to be free of their dukkha or unsatisfactory conditions in samsara and the causes of those conditions, those circumstances. So that's compassion. Yeah. And compassion is a really important link here, as is love, because compassion is going to motivate us to do something. We see sentient beings suffering. We want to do something. So that, if compassion is the fifth step, then what's called the Great Resolve is the sixth step. And that's where you have compassion. You don't want to see others suffer and have the causes of suffering. But you're going to act now to bring that about. So they give the analogy, it's like you see somebody drowning, as if they're drowning in the ocean of samsara, and you can stand on the beach and say, that person's drowning, they're drowning. Quick, you go jump in and save them. Okay? So I see they're suffering, but I don't know how. I don't want to jump in and save them. It's too dangerous for me. So I call on somebody else to do it. Okay? The Great Resolve is saying, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to jump in. Yeah? And you jump in, but you also realize, I can only save somebody who's so far out in the ocean because I don't know how to swim very well. Yeah? And so here is how you go from that Great Resolve to bodhicitta, is you think, well, I want to be of the most effective benefit to sentient beings, but I'm, a confused sentient being myself. How can I really benefit others? I don't have the skill to know their karma, their dispositions. I myself don't even understand the nature of reality so well. So you see, okay, I have to do my homework. And this is where you generate what's called the bodhicitta, that mental consciousness that aspires for full awakening so that you have all the qualities necessary in yourself to be of that great benefit, to benefit sentient beings here in this life, but to lead them to full awakening, to teach them how to overcome this big pit of misery we're in samsara. Okay? So that's a brief explanation of that one way to generate bodhicitta. The second way is called equalizing and exchanging self and others. And personally speaking, this is the method that I really like, okay? Again, because Shandita was so direct, and, you know, my self-centered mind cannot wiggle out of it. Okay, so here you start with equalizing self and others, okay? So before, with equanimity, we equalized friend, enemy, and stranger. But we weren't involved in that. Now here, this first step is equalizing self and others. So then you start to really meditate that everybody equally wants happiness, everybody equally doesn't want pain and misery, and others and I are exactly the same in that respect. There's absolutely no difference. Yeah. And so this begins to hit on our feeling, not our feeling, our thought, our conviction. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, everybody wants happiness and not wants suffering equally. However, yes, but I am more important, and my happiness is more important than others. My suffering hurts more than theirs. So first, we should attend to me. Okay, so this meditation on equalizing self and others, it's really hitting at that. Actually, no, there's no reason to favor ourselves over everybody else, because everybody thinks me, and everybody equally wants happiness, everybody equally wants to avoid misery. There's no objective reason to put ourselves first. Yeah? It sounds so nice, but then in your daily life, when you start to go through your interactions with other people, you know, it's so hard to get beyond that, because I want it this way. Yeah? And I think it should be that way, and I'm more important. Yeah, it's difficult to practice, you know, just even in small things. Okay, so equalizing self and others. Okay, then the next step is seeing the disadvantages of our self-centered mind. Yeah, so, you know, especially in Western culture, there's so much emphasis on the individual, and, you know, some famous person said, if I don't take care of myself, who's going to take care of me? Yeah. So take care of yourself first, and you're the most important, and, you know, when you look for jobs, what do? You make yourself look good. And even you don't know something, then you say, I'm a quick learner and I'll pick it up. Or you kind of fudge on your CV when you're applying for a job and give yourself credit for some things you don't really know or do. Yeah, always putting self first and seeing what is the effect of doing this. Okay? So just in our lives, here and now, yeah, when we look at the problems we've had at work, in relationships, with family, you know, when we really look, so many of the problems come because we've put ourselves first, you know, and others are second. And so we haven't tuned in to where others are at. We haven't connected with them. We're too busy thinking, is this person going to help me or are they going to harm me? How can I use them and get something out of them? We may not think that crassly, okay? But when you meet somebody you really like, there's a thought, oh, you know, I really like them and they like me and oh, they make me feel good. I feel worthwhile, I feel valued, I feel cared for. Yeah, so it keeps going back to me. Now what makes me feel good? Okay, and the more we push this, you know, in our relationships with people, the more we can't relate to them. And in the US right now, we talk so much about how polarized our society is, and this is what's going on. Everybody is locking into themselves, my views, what I want, what I think is good, my politics, my this, my that, okay? And it's harming the whole country. So this happens whenever, this self-centered view, it happens in our personal relationships, it happens between groups, yeah? We look at the conflict in the Middle East right now, and both sides involved are thinking, we suffered, and we need to stop these other people from harming us, yeah? Well, both sides feel that way, both sides have the same agenda. What is it resulting in? Yeah, war, yeah, destruction on both sides, misery on both sides, you know. So that's on a group level, but on a personal level too. You know, when you have a quarrel with somebody in your family, yeah, and you're saying, I'm right, you're exaggerating. Yeah, that's a good one, really. You know, that great way to communicate with somebody. Tell them you're exaggerating, as if we aren't. Okay, so what's making this happen in ourselves and our communication is this thing of self-centeredness. And so that's just in this life we can really begin to see it, and how our self-centeredness lies behind so many actions that we've done that we now have regret for. Yeah, when you start looking at things you feel bad about having done or having said or even having thought, yeah, what lies behind them? You know, it's always me, I, my, mine, you know. And we begin to see, wow, that thought, it pretends to be my friend. You know, this, if I put my self-centered thought out here, a self-centered thought says to me, I'll take care of you, you're first and most important. And I salute my self-centered attitude, and I follow it. But what are the results? Yeah, I'm miserable. Yeah, I'm locked in my own self, you know, put lots of walls and defenses around it, and lots of hooks so I can get everything I want. Yeah, but it's not a very happy life, okay? So that's in this life, but also in our spiritual practice, yeah? We want to be out of samsara, okay? So the first part of that is renunciation of samsara, meaning we renounce the misery of samsara. We're not renouncing happiness. Happiness is what we want. But we're renouncing the misery of samsara. And so, of course, it first of all starts with me. I want to get myself out of samsara. Again, I'm the most important one. But here we begin to see, you know, wait a minute, is that true that I'm the most important one? Is that fair? Is that beneficial? Yeah. And for the same reasons, you know, that we thought before, actually, there's no reason to favor our own awakening, because everybody wants to be free of all misery altogether. Yeah, everybody has that desire. Why should I just work for my own liberation alone? You know, and especially when other living beings have been kind to me. And here we meditate not just on the kindness of our parents, as we did in the first technique, but here we meditate on the kindness of all sentient beings. So, of course, starting with friends and relatives, that's easy to see how kind they are. But then you go to strangers, the people that we ignore, that are just objects that we have to, get around. And we begin to see that actually we are totally dependent on strangers for everything we have in our life. And in fact, we are more dependent on every sentient being now, or on other sentient beings now, than I think at any other time in human history. Yeah? So, speaking for myself, I can't grow my own food. Yeah, I can barely get the plants in my pots to grow properly, let alone to grow food. I can grow my own food. I don't know how to take cotton and make cloth out of it, or to combine it with polyester to get really good cloth. Yeah. I might know how to sew a few seams, but I can't make all of my clothes. The buildings that I use, forget it. Okay, I have no ability to construct anything. I don't understand plumbing except to know how to turn the faucet and how to flush the toilet. If the toilet breaks, the plumbing breaks. I have no ability to fix it. Electricity, if you're counting on me, forget it. I know how to turn the light switch on and off. And if it's a certain kind of light bulb, I know how to change it. But some kinds of light bulbs I don't even know how to change nowadays. Okay, so I look at the simplest things that I use every day, and they don't come through my own efforts. They come from everybody else. Now, and, okay, here we are in this building. How did we get here? We rode in a vehicle. Yeah, who made the vehicle? Who mined the metal that became the vehicle? Who created the seats in your car? Yeah. Who knows how a car runs so that it can get fixed when it collapses in the middle of the highway? Runs out of gas, or, have a flat tire or whatever. Yeah? I don't know how to do any of that. Yeah, the road work. Yeah, we're so dependent on people who do the road work. Do we ever stop and thank them? Yeah, do we ever stop and thank the garbage collectors? You might say, garbage collectors, that's a lowly job. Garbage collectors, they are very important. Because if you don't have good garbage collectors, everybody in the city is going to get sick. Yeah. One of our friends is a nurse, and she was saying that the best surgeon is only good in dependence upon the person who cleans the room after the surgery. Okay, the surgeon is only good dependent on the janitor. If the janitor isn't good, surgeon's not going to be good. Yeah. So when we look this way, we see, wow, we have received so much benefit from so many beings. Yeah, it's overwhelming. And you really begin to feel like, wow, I've been the recipient of tremendous kindness in my life. I've never realized this before, but all these people, who I used to ignore, actually, by doing their jobs in society, they've been kind to me. Okay. Then our mind says, yes, but what about the people who harm me? Well, yeah, if you think about it, if you change your perspective, even the people who have harmed us have helped us in a certain way. Yeah, again, personally speaking, when I've gone through difficulties in my life, yeah, I've had to use the Dharma to get myself out of the difficulties, mostly changing my attitude, changing my behavior. Yeah. But the people who cause the difficulties are the ones who made me look deeper in myself to see, first of all, how I was participating in the mess and what my part of it was, because any mess between people or groups of people is not just due to one person. It's dependent on many causes and conditions. So even though I may feel aggrieved, I participated in it in one way or another. Okay, sometimes I accidentally, deliberately, do you know that one? Accidentally, deliberately say something that I know is going to push somebody else's buttons and make them mad. Yeah, and then I act so innocent afterwards. But those people, who are upset with me or, who try and harm, they're making me really look inside and diminish my self-centered attitude more and more and more. And without those people, I would just be a very pompous brat, basically. Yeah. I remember in 6th grade, some kids in 6th grade said that I was very conceited. That really woke me up, I hated them for saying that, but actually they were right. Yeah. And I had to own that. And so, when people point out faults, if we take it in a Dharma way that we want to improve, then they're actually helping us. Okay? We begin to see the kindness of all sentient beings. And we begin to see not only the disadvantages of a self-centeredness, but the benefits of cherishing them. Because when we cherish others, we all get along better, and we feel fulfilled. Yeah, people feel good when they can help somebody else. And this starts when we're little kids. Little kids, they always want to help. Yeah, I want to help. Can I help set the table? They even say, can I help take out the garbage? When you're 3, you want to just help. And you feel good being able to do it. Yeah. Well, realizing that, yes, we feel good when we can contribute to the welfare of other living beings. And so taking care of others increases our own happiness. It increases harmony in the world. It invigorates in us in our Dharma practice, strengthens our bodhicitta. So that helps us to a stronger bodhicitta helps us to realize emptiness, helps us to get ourselves out of samsara and become fully awakened Buddhas. Okay? So, lots of benefits from cherishing others. What gets in the way of cherishing others? Our self-centered thought. And I have what I call my list of rules of the universe. Okay, this is the doctrine of my self-centered thought, the Magna Carta of my self-centered thought, how everything's gonna be. Okay, so rules of the universe. First of all, everything should turn out the way I want it to turn out. Second, everybody's got to like me. Nobody is allowed to criticize me. That is absolutely, positively banned. Nobody can criticize me. Even if I make a mistake, you don't point it out. Or even if you happened to point it out. It wasn't my fault. Okay? I am completely innocent when things go wrong. But when something goes well, it's my doing. I made it happen. Okay? That, these are my rules of the universe. In relationships, I expect you to always like me. Yeah? And when I feel down, you should support me. When I feel happy, you should meet my mood and also be happy. When I want to play, you should want to play. Yeah? When I do something well, then you should rejoice for what I do. Yeah? I have all these rules of the universe. Yeah? When I'm in a bad mood, you should perk me up and tell me how wonderful I am. You should tell me you love me, 15 times a day. Whatever it is. Yeah? And I have all these rules of the universe, and what's the problem with the world? That the world doesn't follow my rules of the universe. Yeah, that's the problem with the world. Because I always have good ideas. None of my ideas are bad. I always have good advice. I know exactly what everybody should do. Yeah? But nobody listens to me. Poor me. How much I suffer. I try to help these people, and they don't listen to my advice. Okay? Should we begin to see, the self-centered thought is really our enemy. These rules of the universe that we cherish are actually a torture chamber. Yeah, making ourselves so unhappy all the time. Okay, so then the next step, because we have strong love, wanting others to have happiness in its causes, strong compassion, wanting others to be free of suffering in its causes. We see the benefit of cherishing others. We see the fault of, just looking out for our own welfare. So the next meditation is called Tonglen in Tibetan. It's the giving and taking meditation, or the taking and giving meditation. Yeah. Tibetan, it translates as giving and taking, but in the West we usually say taking and giving, because the first step in doing the meditation is you imagine taking on the suffering of other living beings and taking that onto yourself. Okay? To really do this meditation properly, you have to do all these preceding steps. If you don't, then your love and compassion are not really heartfelt. And then, oh yes, I can take on the suffering of everybody. I can give them my happiness. I feel I'm so good, look at me, I'm taking on their suffering, I'm giving them my happiness. I have no attachment to giving them my body, possessions, and merit. And that's not the purpose of this meditation. Yeah, it's not to boost our ego even more, than it's already inflated. It's to really feel, oh, other living beings are suffering. I care about them. Yeah, and I care about them more than I care about my own happiness. Yeah? And so I want to be able to take their suffering from them. Of course, we can never really take anybody's suffering. So this, take it on ourselves. But we create, generate that kind of compassion, so that any time we see somebody suffering, we wish we would like to be able to take that upon ourselves, okay? This works very well when you are mad at other people or you dislike people. You think of their suffering and how much they suffer, and with compassion want to remove they're suffering from them. So instead of hating them for what they're doing, instead of disapproving and saying that they're evil and they're the force of the devil, you say, they're a suffering sentient being who's been kind to me in the past and will continue to be kind to me when I'm in samsara. So I would like to at least imagine taking on their misery. And not just taking on their misery, but using it in the visualization to destroy the very hard lump at my own heart of fear of what's going to happen to the self. Fear of and self-concern, because we've seen how our own self-centeredness is our biggest enemy. So we take on the suffering of others. We can imagine it like, some people like seeing it as a thunderbolt that then strikes and demolishes the lump of self-centeredness at the heart. Some people like seeing it as, some kind of magic thing that kind of makes all the dirt go away, so your whole lump of dirt at your heart, disintegrates, whatever visualization you want to use. But the result is that you really feel with compassion, can I take on the misery of others? And then you don't just take it and then feel miserable yourself, you use it to destroy your own self-centeredness. And then you think, my body, which is our most cherished possession, my worldly possessions, and even my merit that I worked so hard to create in Dharma practice. I want to give these to others. May they have them. May it ripen in their happiness in this life. May, when I give my merit, it ripen for them to meet fully qualified Mahayana and Vajrayana teachers and to have all the conducive conditions to practice. And so we imagine taking our body, our possessions, and merit, transforming them into whatever other living beings need. And with a loving mind, with no feeling of loss ourselves, giving them, sending them out to other living beings, and them receiving them and feeling happy, and see them progressing on the path to awakening. Okay, so this is the bodhicitta that we want to develop, and then having, generated spontaneous bodhicitta, which is the mark of becoming a bodhisattva, is when, you see any living being and your thought is, how can I be of benefit? I want to attain awakening for their sake, for their well-being. And then that motivates us to follow the bodhisattva path, to practice the different paramitas or perfections, so generosity, ethical conduct, fortitude, joyous effort, meditative stabilization, wisdom, to generate all those qualities, to realize the ultimate nature, and to progress through the 5 paths and 10 grounds of the bodhisattva path to arrive at full Buddhahood. So this is a long-term project. We're not going to become Buddhas by, next Friday, or, they say, try to become enlightened in this life, but don't count on it, okay? Because to accumulate the merit and transform our mind so drastically from this self-centered thought to cherishing others, from grasping at everything as inherently existent to seeing things as dependent arising and as empty of inherent existence, this is going to take some time. It's like this is major reformatting, so to speak, But the wonderful thing about generating bodhicitta is you have this long-term vision of where you're going. So there's gonna be bumps on the road. For sure we're gonna have problems in our life. Yeah, we get sick, things fall apart, all sorts of stuff comes out. Yeah, but when we know where we're going and we know how to take each and every life experience into the path so that everything we experience increases our bodhicitta, increases our wisdom, yeah, increases our kindness to others, yeah, then, then everything in our life is fulfilling, everything is meaningful, yeah. So bumps in the road don't become huge obstacles. There's something that we use to dig deeper and transform our mind and to nudge us on the path to awakening. Yeah. So I think bodhisattvas, they have incredible compassion when they see the suffering of others, but they don't get distressed by that suffering. Yeah. So they see the suffering and they think, I want to do something, How can I help this person in front of me right now? How can I help them in the long term? Yeah. So I think bodhisattvas' minds always remain optimistic and hopeful. So with that, may we all generate bodhicitta and become bodhisattvas and progress on the path to full awakening. Thank you.